Hi, and welcome back to Lisa's Stamp Studio. My name is Lisa Curcio. The new annual catalog with Stampin' Up! Is debuting on June 4th, and I have been so excited to share projects with you that I've been creating from that new catalog. Here is the beautiful Free as a Bird stamp set. It's also offered as a bundle, which is going to create that real fun peekaboo opening to the front of this card. If you are here visiting from YouTube, I'll have a link down in the video description below, which will lead you over to the pictures. I'll also include the cutting dimensions and the supplies I've used down below in the video description. I'd love to encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're here. Make sure you click that small bell icon that's right next to it. That will give you notifications of when I'm live here on YouTube, as well as when I upload a new video. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's card. Here's a close-up of the card we're going to be creating together today. And I think you can get a better look now at how I created the opening on this card using the bundle, which is part of these beautiful nested stitched framelits. They're graduated sizes, and you're going to love that stitching that's included with the die. Now you can buy those separately, or you can buy them as part of the bundle of the Free as a Bird stamp set, which is what I used here. You're going to find both of these products in the brand new annual Stampin' Up! Catalog that comes out on June 4th. So please keep in mind these are not available until June 4th. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a complimentary copy of this new catalog, leave me a comment below, or better yet, go over to lisastampstudio.com and click on the Contact Me button and leave me your full name and mailing address. I've got a small grid sheet here. This measures 7 by 7, made specifically for our stamp positioning tool, but I love them when I'm working in a small space, especially when I'm stamping with friends. I'm going to pull out a small piece of Pool Party cardstock. I'm going to have all the cutting dimensions down below for you if you're here visiting from YouTube. I'm going to be using also the Pool Party ink. The one thing I love about Stampin' Up! Is the color coordination. So the ink matches the cardstock, that matches the marker and the accessories, and you don't have to worry about things not coordinating. From that same stamp set, I've pulled out the leaf, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that here on my cardstock. And I'm going to stamp every which way because I'm looking to create a wallpaper background. You can see too that I'm avoiding the end of that stem. I'm going to set that aside. And now I've got a piece of thick Whisper White cardstock. When you're using alcohol-based markers like I am with the Stampin' Blends, you're going to find that this paper will actually lay the color down easier and it will blend better. I've scored it in half just before the video. I'm going to use my bone folder for that nice crisp crease. And now what I'm going to do is I've pulled out one of those nested framelits to create the opening on this card. I've got my die cutting machine here, and I'm going to make sure that I open up my card. I'm going to put the fold at the top because it's going to be easiest for me to see where this is going to go. And then I'm going to line this up. I'm going to leave a little bit of room at the top, and I'm going to look specifically to try to get as equal amount of space on both sides as possible. Once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and put another clear mat over the top to protect that, and then we will crank this through so it'll die cut that opening. You can see now the stitching from that beautiful nested die. Isn't that fun? I'll go ahead and save this for another card because we're going to be using the negative today on this card front. I've got my scratch paper here again because I'm going to do some stamping and some coloring. I'm going to recommend that you use a pencil to kind of give you an indication of where that opening is so that you know where to stamp. I've got my mechanical pencil here, and I'm not endorsing this, but I love this Bic mechanical pencil simply because the lead is very, very soft and the eraser works like a charm. So I'm going to come inside of here and I'm going to make a small pencil line near the top and the bottom, and just slightly on both sides, just so I have a parameter of where I'm going to be stamping. And I know it's going to be very difficult to see in the video because I made those pencil marks very light. I'm going to be using my Memento ink specifically because I'm using alcohol-based markers. This ink will not cause any bleeding with those markers. And I've pulled out the words, "Your friendship means the world to me," and this is all from that same stamp set called Free as a Bird. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink those up, and I'm going to stamp that here near the top. That same leaf that we used on that piece of paper when we first started is what I'm going to be using to create a little bit of cascading greenery here on my card as well. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up in the Memento ink, and I can see my pencil line is here. So I'm working kind of in that area, and I'll stamp, and I'm going to ink it again, and this time I'm going to turn the stamp so that the leaves are going in another direction. have the points meeting in the middle. It doesn't matter if they're symmetrical. From that same stamp set, you're going to find this small flower. I'm going to ink this up as well, and I'm going to attach that one here in the branch. I'm going to do the same thing now on this side. Any overlapping is completely fine. I'm going to push that to the side for just a moment, and I've got a scrap piece of thick Whisper White cardstock here, and I've pulled out that small individual flower from the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp one of those here. I'm going to be using the Pool Party Stampin Blends alcohol-based markers, and there is a light and a dark shade. Now you can buy these individually for $4.50 or $9 as a combo. We do sell them individually, so if you use the lighter or the darker more often, you're able to replace them individually, which I absolutely love. You'll also find that they're dual-ended. So the thin line represents the thin tip, and the thick line here represents the brush tip. Since this is a very small area as well as those, I'm going to go ahead and use the chiseled or the fine tip on these. I'm going to add a little bit of color right here in the center, working primarily where the artist has put the lines in the stamps. Now while I have the light marker out, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch over to that card base where we started, and I'm going to work a little bit on that flower, doing the same thing here on the buds. I'll go ahead and camp that, and now I'm going to switch over to the dark. Again, I'm using the thin side, and I'm going to add a little bit of color down inside of here. And I'll come back to that flower, and I'll do the same thing, concentrating that more in the middle. That's going to give us a little bit of depth. I'm going to come back in with the lighter color, just to make sure that those are blended and I don't have any harsh lines. And then I'll do the same here with my flower. You'll want to make sure that your work surface is protected because the Stampin' Blends alcohol markers will bleed through the paper. I also want to give you a tip about the color lifter. I think that this product doesn't get enough airtime, so I want to show you how it works. Not only will it lift color, it will also move color. So if you had actually colored outside the lines, you could go ahead and use this, and you can add a little bit of this clear marker. As you can see, there's the alcohol. It's actually going to start to dissipate, and it will push the color back within the lines to help erase those mistakes. The other thing I like about it is I can come back over an image that has color on it, and after a few seconds, you're going to notice the color start to fade. If you've made it too dark, you can actually do some color correction. I'm going to do the same thing here. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but do you see how I actually got some of the Pool Party ink right here inside one of those leaves? I'm not worried about that. I could come back in with my color lifter and remove some of that color if I want to, but since I'm going to be doing some green, it's going to be a lot darker, and I'm not worried about any variegation in that color. And again, because this is a small area, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to color in the leaves and the stems of those buds. I'm using the light Old Olive Stampin' Blends first. I'm going to switch over now to the dark Old Olive Stampin' Blends, and I'm going to add a little bit of detail. And I'm not going to be really specific about where I put it, but I'm also using some of those artist lines to give me an idea of where I want to lay color. And you can see this is just very, very random. Don't overthink it. I'll come back to the light, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in small circular motions, because this is a very small area, to work to blend those lines so there's no rough definitions. I've also avoided the center here, specifically because that's where I'm going to put that flower that we created separately. Do you see here how I've colored a little bit outside the line? Let's go ahead and use the color lifter, and I'm going to add a little bit of color lifter outside of the color. And as the alcohol penetrates the paper, you're going to see that that starts to disappear. It's actually moving the ink. I'll set that off to the side, and now I've got that small flower. There is no die for this image, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fussy cut it with my scissors. It won't take but a few seconds. I'm going to recommend that you leave cardstock around the image. Don't cut right on your stamp line. So by leaving a little bit of a cardstock edge around it, I'm guaranteed not to lose the actual shape of the image itself. We've got our flower here, and I'm going to come back with my pencil now, and I'm going to very carefully and lightly erase those pencil lines so that they're not visible once the card is completed. This small image, I'm going to use a dimensional, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that over. There are pre-cut double-sided pieces of foam tape. I'm going to place it right here. It's going to fit perfectly. Remove that other side, which is the paper backing, and that's going to camouflage that section here. And you can see that most of the image is within the window. If all of it isn't, it's totally fine because the card is intended to be opened. Remember this piece that we stamped? That's going to go here at the bottom. I'm going to be using my silicone craft sheet. I absolutely love this because adhesive, liquid glue, and hot glue will not stick to it. It simply rubs right off because of the silicone surface. Oftentimes, I add my adhesive very, very close to the edge, and I end up getting it all over my work surface, and I'm fighting that sticky spot the entire time I'm paper crafting. I'll go ahead and open this so I can try to make this as symmetrical as possible, and I'll lay this here near the very bottom and then press that in place. This now will get mounted on a base of Pool Party cardstock. So I'm flipping over the whole thing. Now, do you see why I didn't want this to actually be the base of the card? Because the Stampin Blends alcohol markers would bleed through. So I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive around the perimeter. I'm going to be a lot more generous than I normally am, simply because I know that this piece is the part that's going to be open and closed the most, and I want to make sure that there's no lifting. And then this will get centered here. I'm going to leave a small margin of color all the way around. I've got a piece here of the beautiful vanilla trim. You might be thinking that that doesn't work very well with the white cardstock, but it works out actually beautifully. It's very, very light in color. I'm opening up the card and I'm wrapping it to the inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bow over here on the right-hand side. Oftentimes, the struggle comes in here with keeping the tension. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to be using my Take Your Pick pickup tool. This is not in our current publications, but it will be featured in the new catalog. It is available now. $10. It includes a putty tip, which is great for picking up sequins and small pieces of paper. It includes a putty refill. In addition to that, there are interchangeable tips that go inside of here. I'm using the paper piercing tool right now. This one actually happens to be a small spatula. This actually helps me get underneath those dimensionals if I have to reposition them. It also comes with a dual-sided stylus tool. I have a glue dot here. I'm going to peel this back. It's between the layers. And with my tool, I'm going to roll this up into a small ball. I'm going to go ahead and turn my ribbon the way I want it to go. And this is what I call a little card surgery. We're going to place that glue dot where we want that tie to be. And I've just pulled out the tool. That's going to allow the ribbon to stick exactly where I want it to fall. It's also going to hold the tension of your ribbon. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up around here and I'm going to make my bow. I'm using about 20 inches. Don't short yourself. I know we don't want to waste our ribbon, but it's better that you have enough than not enough. And then I'll come in with my paper snips and then just give those ends a little bit of a trim. And there is our card. Here's the one we created together today, and here's the one I created before you joined me. No two are going to be exactly alike, so embrace it. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. It makes YouTube and I both very happy. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.